Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News for Thursday, July 9. I'm Carrie Simpson. Here's what we have in the bulletin. 2 suspected robbers fatally shot in St. Catherine police operation. Bail extended for Jay Frey and Javi Ambassador in gun case. And later in sports, several Jamaicans set for Monaco Diamond League. Thank you for joining us. Now the details. 2 men suspected to be members of the LOL criminal gang linked to a string of robberies across the corporate area were fatally shot during a police operation in Spanish Town, St. Catherine last night. Police say about 9:20, members of the St. Catherine North Operational Support Team acted on intelligence that the men were hiding in the St. John's Road community. During the operation, the 2 suspects were shot and a firearm was seized. The men were being hunted after a series of armed robberies at gas stations along Deanery Road, West Main Drive, Maxfield Avenue, and Harborview yesterday. A female pump attendant was shot in the chest during the Deanery Road robbery and remains hospitalized in serious condition. Now, a video of the incident has been circulating on social media. New head of the Manchester Police, DSP Odin Dennis, is assuring residents of Manchester that he does not intend for curfews to be a feature highlight of his crime-fighting strategies in communities affected by violence. However, DSP Dennis warns that residents must play their part in ensuring that this happens. He was addressing a community meeting in Greenville, Manchester last evening. He argues that frequent impositions of curfews are unsustainable and negatively impact law-abiding and hard-working residents of the community.
Of that kind of nature, shooting and other violent crimes. We want for the community members to come forward and talk to the police about what transpired. Don't hide anything, because when you hide what actually took place, we are not going to be able to deal fully with the incident.
Greenville, which was once regarded as a crime hotspot, has been seeing significant reduction in violence in recent years. However, police imposed a 48-hour curfew in the area following a recent shooting.
We institute the curfews for a number of reasons. Chief among those reasons is, 1, to prevent people from being out at certain times, so that if there are persons who intend on just wantonly going about and hurting people, then they have less of an opportunity because people are not about.
To other news, podcaster J.D. Free Richards and music producer Javi Ambassador Morrison had their bail extended yesterday to return to the Gun Court Division of the Supreme Court on October 28. Mr. Richards is charged with wounding with intent with the use of a firearm, shooting with intent, possession of a prohibited weapon, unauthorized possession of ammunition, and using prohibited weapon to commit felony. Mr. Morrison is charged with wounding with intent with the use of a firearm, using a prohibited weapon to commit a felony, and assault occasioning bodily harm. Now, the charges against the 2 stemmed from a shooting during an entertainment event on April 12 at Ranny Williams Entertainment Center in St. Andrew, where 3 persons were shot. Tensions continue to mount in West Albion, St. Thomas, where residents displaced by a recent demolition exercise say they are still waiting for answers from the National Land Agency. Antonia Atkinson has the details. And we will come back to that news. Opposition spokesman on education Damian Crawford is again calling on the government to do everything in its power to find the over 300 students who still have not returned to school since Hurricane Melissa. Mr. Crawford is suggesting that this time around there should be a collective effort.
The government in its totality have that responsibility. They have both a collective responsibility and the individual responsibility. So the Ministry of Security have that responsibility. The Ministry of Social Welfare have that responsibility. The Ministry of Youth have that responsibility. And the Ministry of Education have that responsibility. The Prime Minister and the Cabinet have the responsibility. The problem is that even if you find them back at this point, having lost almost a year of education activity, and most likely having been the struggling ones that are not returning, it is going to be a problem.
Now, nearly 9 months after Hurricane Melissa, and still several children in parishes worst hit are yet to return to the classroom. Mr. Crawford believes the Ministry of Housing should come on board.
I add that the Ministry of Housing would have a responsibility, because some of them who lost their houses could be the basis upon which they have not returned to school. And so when we ask for boarding, these are reasons for which we were asking for boarding. When we offered our constituency to host and the ministry played no role in encouraging persons to come, these were the reasons that we offered our constituency to host. And when we spoke about making the schools become the center of relief for persons between the ages of 3 and 18, we were trying to avoid what we have right now.
Now back to an earlier story, tensions continue to mount in West Albion, St. Thomas, where residents displaced by a recent demolition exercise say they are still waiting for answers from the National Land Agency. Here's Antonia Atkinson.
What was expected to be a meeting to address their concerns turned another day on. About 35 residents gathered at the Grants Bend Primary School on Thursday, expecting to meet with representatives of the National Land Agency. Instead, they say they were informed that the meeting had been cancelled after many had already arrived. The residents whose community has been thrust into the national spotlight following the demolition of several homes last week say they were giving no prior notice of the cancellation.
What is the real purpose of the NLA telling the people to go and survey their land, and then they drive pegs, and then they gave us forms to fill out and promising us that we can become owners in the future. If you had planned not to sold us the land, why? What is the reason for that?
The cancelled meeting comes weeks after the NLA, with police support, carried out a demolition exercise in the community. The agency has maintained that the occupants were illegally settling on government-owned lands and said it had followed established protocols, including serving notices and holding consultations from 2024. The NLA has also said the lands are being reserved for development purposes and that 28 structures have been identified for demolition.
We don't have the money for go buy the land for $0.5 million. So we know what I want to find out where we get the government come and do this then. Who have a big piece, who have a small piece. Estimate it, do them diagram and sell it.
They insist they need documents, clear information, and the status of the land, and a fair opportunity to be heard before any further action is taken. Some say the cancellation of Thursday's meeting has only deepened their distrust, as many families remain displaced and uncertain about their future.
We just want information about how we can get the land. As in, because a lot of persons they up there from like them are kids. Like for instance, me, 22 and I go on trying to get somewhere. Can't really necessarily depend on my mother. As we if you say I'm gonna live with my mother, so I really want somewhere for myself. Building, it comes on to a point where land people come up there, them start to plot out. Not much was said, but something was done. But that's it.
Antonia Atkinson, TVJ News.
And it's time for a break. Do stay with us. More stories when we return.